Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad and the good.
Welcome back, everybody. It is That Effin' Sports Show, and we are here, as always, with the Adam Hulse, Adam Hulse Sports, NFL writer for Sportskeeda. Adam, we went through the NFC South. It's time to hit the AFC South. It's an easy transition to make because everybody in the AFC South plays everybody in the NFC South. The other link, as the NFL schedule goes, is with the AFC North, and then we'll have the three outliers. So as we go through this, we'll see a lot of teams the same. We'll see a lot of matchups the same in different orders. We'll see how it all goes down. We're going to start with Houston. We saw how the NFC South played out. We had a couple of shockers in there. Do you see some more shockers coming? I know we're checking all this live, and that's important to mention. You mentioned it on the NFC South wrap-up show that we are making all these picks live. Do you think we're going to have
we're making these picks live. Like besides shocking the audience, we might continue to shock ourselves, kind of like you did with the Panthers, right?
I agree. We had Houston in the dumpster last year. They make a lot of changes, not just with Stroud coming in at quarterback, but they change offense, they change defense, they change coaches. Kind of like Carolina, it's a big change across the board.
Yeah, and that's kind of like the new method, like in the NFL, right? Like if you're going to go through a rebuild, you can't do that like competitive type of rebuild, like let's try to be 500 while we rebuild. It's, all the data shows that the right way to do it is tear it all down and build it back up.
And I love it. I think it's a great thing. Houston only had 3 wins last year, but those 3 wins all came against division opponents, which is an interesting note. But as we talked about, everything has changed, so maybe that doesn't even matter. They have their first game at Baltimore. Who's going to win it? We got Jackson back.
Lamar Jackson is back. Lamar Jackson seems relatively happy. Who knows if Lamar is going to finish the whole season. He's had his injury troubles, but he's going to be there week 1, and as long as he's there week 1, Ravens are going to win this game.
I think this game is going to be better than it should be, but yeah, I think Baltimore literally runs away with it. Houston had the worst run defense in the league last year. Baltimore, in the lower half at pass defense, but the kids just learning the game. The kids just learning the speed. I think this is an easy one to call. I agree with you. Baltimore gets the win for week 1. Then it goes to Indy. Then we get I believe it's our first rookie head-to-head for the season. Indianapolis comes to Houston. Richardson, we just talked about the rush defense, and we know that is kind of one of Richardson's things is to run. We know Indy has arguably one of the best running backs in the NFL. Houston always has seemed to have Indy's number regardless. I think this game right here might be where the streak gets broken. I think Indy can pull this one off in week 2.
I'm going to go the other way with it. With Houston being at home, both teams making major changes, quarterback, coach, rookie quarterback. You pointed out too, Houston kind of seems to have Indy's number, even when Indy's better than they are this year. With the game being at Houston, 2 rookie quarterbacks, give me the Texans.
I like it. I like the pick. It's hard to make because, like you said, Houston always has Indy's number. I don't know what it is. Always do. I'm probably going to go back and wish I had not done that. But we move on to week 3 at Jacksonville. Interesting how well Jacksonville finished, but at the beginning of the season, Jacksonville wasn't that great, and it took them a while to get on track. And so Houston was actually able to split with Jacksonville. This time they've got to go to Jacksonville. You've mentioned before the possibility for regression is there in Jacksonville, but you are very high on Jacksonville at the same time. Houston goes to Jacksonville. Stroud versus Lawrence. What do we got? Ohio State versus Clemson.
Look, I don't think the second half of last season was a fluke. Some people think it was a little bit fluky, the winning the playoff game, that as hot as the Jags finished last year. A lot of people call it they just caught fire at the right time. I don't really see it that way. I see it as that's who the Jags are going to be this year. I think Trevor Lawrence has arrived. I think his confidence is where it's supposed to be now. I'm thinking big things for the Jags this year. Definitely taking the Jags in this game.
Obviously, we're taking the Jags in this game. That would be one hell of an upset. Someone's going to make a lot of money in Vegas if it goes the other way. Pittsburgh comes into Houston. Pittsburgh quarterback year 2. They've been making changes. Do they have it dialed in? Doesn't matter if they don't when they play Houston in week 4.
Pittsburgh knows how to grind games out. Even if they have to win ugly like they did multiple times last year, they found ways to win late. With Kenny Pickett, a couple of those game-winning drives late in the season. I think this is going to be one of those ugly type of games, and Pittsburgh kind of thrives in those situations. So give me the Steelers.
Yeah, I'm taking the Steelers on this one. That's my team. I think Pickett is working it out. Pickens to Pickett is working. Need to work out the running game, but obviously Tomlin is awesome at that. I think Pittsburgh's a much improved team. I think they gel a little better this year, and I don't think Houston.
And Pittsburgh's really good at just beating who they're supposed to beat. You don't see a lot of times Pittsburgh stumble against these bottom of the barrel teams. And so I think they're definitely going to take care of business as they usually do.
Adam already calling Houston bottom of the barrel. Week 5 at Atlanta. If you listen to the NFC South episode in Atlanta, you already know how this turns out. You gave Houston the loss. I actually gave Houston the win at Atlanta for this one. So we split here. Still feeling good with that.
Yep.
We stay in the NFC South for opponents. Houston, interesting schedule lineup as they play all 4 NFC South teams in a row. There's a bye week in between there, but their next 4 games from weeks 5 to 9 are all the NFC South games. So they kind of knock that all in one shot. New Orleans comes to town. We already said how we feel about New Orleans. Go back, check the New Orleans episode, see where we got them finishing. In this game, we're both handing Houston a loss.
Yeah, I mean, very strange that you're going to play 4 consecutive teams from the same division, especially with it being an out-of-conference division. Strange how that worked out for Houston, but if you listen to the previous 4 episodes for the NFC South, you're going to know that I don't see good things coming for Houston during this stretch, and I actually have them getting swept by the NFC South.
Yes, you do. So that's, takes care of the next 2 games. So again, week 7, they play at Carolina, then Tampa Bay comes in. I gave them the loss against Carolina. I give them the win against Tampa. As you said, you have them getting swept. So interesting enough, I have them opening and ending this NFC South with wins against Atlanta and Tampa, whereas you have them getting completely swept despite the improvement and the learning curve. NFC South, AFC South, we started here because these are kind of arguably the 2 worst divisions top to bottom in football. And that may change this year. We acknowledge that as well. But as of last year, you really don't see the changes in Houston having much effect this year as we reach week 10.
Well, like a concept that I talked about during, our NFC South series is that these unfamiliar opponents can often be weirder type of games. A lot of times I favor, home teams when you play a team that you don't play that often, or I just simply favor, like the better team in a sense. I think Houston's going to struggle during this stretch. That's why I have them getting swept. If you're right that they can split 2-2 with the NFC South, that would be a massive win for the Texans, and that's how they can find their way to a handful of wins this year. Winning 2 against the NFC South, it's possible. The NFC South, neither of us think that division is very good either. I just see them all as superior to the Texans, who I think are going to have a hard time finding wins against just about anybody this year.
Week 10 probably being one of those weeks as they travel to Cincinnati. Bad enough they have to play Joe Cool and company, but they have to go to Cincinnati to do it in week 10. I'm giving Houston the loss there. I think Stroud plays better. I think Stroud helps improve this offense. I think he gets better and better as the season goes. Honestly, Burrow, besides being a better quarterback overall, at least to the eye test, he's got the experience and he knows how to win games. And Houston is going to be a game I don't think he's going to look past.
This is simply one of those situations where as long as the Bengals show up, they're going to win this game. If they're looking past it, that's when weird things can happen. We talked about, too, how there's always a couple of huge upsets every NFL season. I don't see this being one of them. The Bengals are usually very good at staying focused, so give me the Bengals.
We go to 11, and we get what I think could be a game. We get Arizona. Arizona comes to Houston. We've both already touched on the fact we're a little worried about Arizona this year. I think Arizona, like Tennessee, is maybe one of those teams that we're not, it's hard to kind of tell where they're at. I do like James Conner, especially in the fantasy football arena, but Arizona kind of a question mark. They go to Houston in week 11.
Yeah, this is one of those weird games, right? Because especially talking about it now before the season starts, we know Kyler Murray is not going to be there at the beginning of the year. When/if is he going to make his debut this season as he works his way back from injury? and with some controversy within the organization, it's unclear the direction they want to go. They seem like they kind of want to rebuild. It's really hard to rebuild when you're paying your quarterback that much money. Cardinals, very weird, confusing team to figure out right now. I'm actually going to take the Texans to upset them in it.
As did I, pretty much for the reasons you said. I just don't know what Arizona's going to be, and so I'm going to give Houston the benefit of the doubt here. They stay at home. Jacksonville comes to town. We mentioned it at the beginning. They were able to split with Jacksonville last year. Can they pull it off again?
No, I think the Jags are on another level this year. I have them, they were a playoff team last year. I think they're going to be even better this year. Keep saying it. Watch out for the Jags this season. I think they take care of business. They get the sweep against the Texans.
Yeah, I kind of go with that as well. They get a rematch against Denver. Obviously, Houston lost to Denver last year. Obviously, it was a completely different team on both sides of the ball. You got Peyton out in Denver. We know all the changes that have happened in Houston. Denver in Houston in week 13. Two new teams, two new offenses. How's this one going to play out?
I think Denver is going to be a much improved team this year because of Sean Payton. I just don't see Sean Payton going to the Broncos unless he believes that they are going to be a playoff contending team this year. If Payton believes it, I'm going to kind of side with Payton. If they're going to be that, they have to beat teams like the Texans. So give me the Broncos.
Got to take the Broncos too. I hate to hand Houston all these losses, but we'll see. Maybe they'll get some at the end. Then they go to the Jets for week 14. Aaron Rodgers and company, assuming he's still playing and healthy enough. Houston, week 14, the Jets are just good. They've got the pieces. They're playing well. Obviously, we'll get to that division and get through their whole lineup, but I don't think Houston is a team, unless they just look past them, the Jets take this one as well.
And obviously, Rodgers can bring this team to the next level, and they did end last season on a bad losing streak, but they also showed last season that even without a quarterback, they can compete with really good teams. Now that they have a quarterback, the Jets are thinking big things this year. They're just a better team than Houston at pretty much every position across the board, so I got to take the Jets.
Tennessee they go to Tennessee in week 15. Again, they split with Tennessee, and Tennessee is just that team that we don't know. We don't know who's going to be playing quarterback in week 15. There's no way to tell who's going to be the quarterback for Tennessee in week 15. They do still have...
is there any way to tell who's going to be their quarterback in week 1 at this point? Who knows what's going on with the Titans?
Do we know who's going to win this game?
The game's in Tennessee. Tennessee's been able to win like some ugly matchups in the past, and Tennessee's weird too because I've been down on them for years, and even some of the years that I'm down on them, they get the 1 seed in the AFC somehow. So I think this is the kind of game at home that the Titans are still going to win, regardless of which one of their 3 quarterbacks are playing.
I know Houston has made changes, but they still had the worst rush defense in the NFL last year. It's hard to go from worst to being able to stop Derrick Henry, though they did split last year. I give them that. I'm with you. I got to hand Houston another loss. Got another rematch in week 16 with Cleveland. Houston lost this game last year. The big question in Cleveland, of course, is going to be Watson. Is he starting to get dialed in? Is that offense going to start picking up? They've obviously been tested way before this, and we're going to have a better, clearer answer by this actual point in the season. But as we predict these wins or losses, Cleveland in Houston, I'm sorry, Houston, I got to give you another loss.
I'm going to go with the Browns in this one. I think that, I don't know if Deshaun Watson's days of being an elite quarterback are ever coming back or if they're behind him at this point. Time will tell on that. I know that, in my opinion, he's going to be a lot better this year than he was last year with all the suspension stuff and all the off-the-field stuff and the whole mess he was going through last year. That was a lot to handle and also try to go perform on the field. Now that that's relatively behind him, he had some games last year. He had a full off season now to really get his head straight and get his focus back. I think he will be improved. The Browns will be improved, and they'll beat the Texans.
Next up, Tennessee again. So 2 weeks later, after traveling to Tennessee, Tennessee comes to them. They split with them last year. I'm going to give Houston the split this year. I'm actually going to give Houston the win at home against Tennessee.
I agree with you. It seems like a home-home split type of situation with both teams, in my opinion, not going to be very good this year.
And they finish at Indy again. I'm going to give Houston the split in Indianapolis. Houston just able to somehow beat Indianapolis reckless every year, regardless of how good they are. I think this late in the season, people are already going to have Richardson kind of figured out. And this being a division game, Houston having that run against Indy, I think they can pull it off here. Houston gets the win.
For me, I'm giving Houston the loss in this game, but I gave them the win in the first one. So I guess we're on the same page that this is a split type of series.
Indeed. And I kind of thought you were going to go that way. I've got Houston winning 5 games, and you've got them winning 3, just like last year. Not doing
3 and 14.
Yeah, not doing well again, despite the changes. But this is a rebuild year. So I'm going to go on record by saying right now, even at the 5 wins, I think Houston is going to finish better than that. I think they're going to steal some games. I think Stroud is good enough. I think once he gets in the system, gets used to stuff, I think he's going to steal a couple games around here through the season. And those are the games you just can't predict, but they're going to be surprising to people. Even though I'm sticking with my record of 5 and 12, I think Houston actually does play a lot better than 5 and 12.
You know, DeMeco Ryan should have the defense playing better. Their defense was already pretty decent at times last year, especially against the pass. I think that Houston is going to be a team that's not going to get like blown out often. I think they'll be feisty and competitive. I just don't see them pulling off a whole bunch of wins.
It remains to be seen. Either way, we have them not doing fantastic, regardless of how they finish, looking better, not maybe making the same strides that Carolina might make. But I think to wrap Houston up, this is another situation where the schedule, personally, I don't think the schedule really played in their favor, having to go up against teams like the Jets, Cincinnati, Jacksonville twice. They got to play Baltimore. I think the schedule kind of worked against them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of tougher-ish type of schedule. You're right. Get lucky to play a team like Arizona, which is one of the 3 teams that I gave them a win against. I gave them 2 divisional wins. I think they're going to have a hard time doing much more than that.
Agreed. Houston, CJ Stroud, lots of improvements, maybe not so much in the record department. Good news is that's another great,
maybe next year.
That's another great pick come the draft. Check us out on the next episode. We're going through every team in the NFL. We're breaking them all down live. We'll see who's there at the end. Come back and join us, the Adam Hulse at Adam Hulse Sports, NFL writer for Sportskeeda. You can find us at That Effin' Sports Show, at That Effin' Show, EFIN. Titans coming up next as we go through the AFC South. We'll see you on the next one.
Call it word of mouth, can't put me down. I be getting loud, you can have it douse. Not what I'm about, have your cloud. It be raining now, I keep making sound. Go another round, I'm legend bound. Can't stop me now. You don't wanna fuck with me. A slow